Why do we do tips as a percentage? Because it's America. Tipping is a big reason I only eat out overseas. Restaurants need to pay their employees a fair wage. If you don't have customers, you don't have tips, and that's not going to pay the rent. The key is not to feel guilty. Because of tipping culture, I used to always tip accordingly about 18-20 of the bill. But as inflation has ran rampant and prices have soared, the service has only gotten worse. Understaffed, or whatever reason, it doesn't matter. Now I tip about 10-15 depending. It sucks for the wait staff. But at the end of the day, that's a job they chose and the customers aren't obligated to pay their wages. If we continue to tip crazy amounts, things will never change. Because they have grounded into you, that's how it should be. You are 100 correct though. It's an upsell incentive. Sure, there are plenty of people who just order a specific thing they want, but in many cases, a good server can make suggestions and hugely affect the price. You might not think so, but a good upseller and a standard server will have tips that are significantly different with a large enough sample size. My grandpa always thought the percentage system was strange, so he just tips by the amount of time a server spends on him, which I always thought was an interesting alternative. For example, let's say the minimum wage of a state is 15. Every minute they spend on him would equate to 0.25. So if they take his order, bring him his food, and don't talk to him for the rest, it's probably only going to equate to 5-10 minutes of tips. But if they are frequently stopping by his table and asking if he needs refills or anything, it significantly increases the amount he leaves. In his words, I'm not paying them more than their own employer if I'm not even the one receiving their service. Everything about American tipping culture is shit. Because it is a predatory scam. The point of charges is to steal as much as you can get away with stealing from each individual victim before their defense instincts kick in and they try and protect themselves from you. I don't. I tip standardized round numbers for how annoying I think we are. Delivery gets 5 minimum or 1 mile. I don't place large orders. Quick restaurant trip, less than an hour. 10 large gathering restaurant trip, 10 per person. Though I will double these for high-end places. Sure, I get that it sounds stupid, but that's what those service people expect from that job and they are typically more professional. I know this going in, so I'm fine paying more. Someone somewhere thought it would be a great idea for the employee's wages dependent on the customer, but no one has ever decided to change that. Now that I think about it, I usually just tip 20, but really am paying a 20 commission on whatever they sell me. The original intent is that a party of 5 that spends, let's say 200, is taking up a lot more of the waiter's time than 2 people who spend 60, since the waiter is bringing a lot more food to the table. Obviously this doesn't translate super well to places that offer 100 steaks, but if you're eating there then in theory you have the money, so who cares? I'm start at 15, and that is for good service. If service deviates, waitstaff slow to respond for example, I start working the 15 down. Some people are not meant to work with the public and are only there because of different circumstances. I don't tip takeout and do not tip many fast food places. I support the various restaurants I eat at by patronizing them in the first place. For me to leave anything over 15, the service would have to be spectacular. I have been to a few but not many. There's an incentive to be more attentive. More drinks, check for appetizers, dessert, etc. The restaurant sells more and you have more attention. I don't. I pay based upon a number of factors and not a straight percentage. The expectations are higher for service in a situation where you're being served an expensive steak dinner. It's not a catch-all, but it's good enough as a rough estimate. The tip is supposed to be based on service received, not a set percentage or amount. I tip too. If I'm eating a 300 per person dinner, I expect a much higher level of service than if it's a 15 special at Denny's. You expect to pay more for a higher level of service. A simple way to implement that is to pay the waitstaff an amount proportional to the amount you spent on the meal. One can certainly argue that a more complex algorithm would be more appropriate than a simple linear relationship. You likely aren't really getting 20 times more better service, whatever that even means, with your 300 dinner vs a 15 one. But the simple percentage has the major benefit of being very easy to calculate on the fly. A lot of restaurants force servers to tip out other employees based on a percentage of their sales, and they pay that amount whether you tip or not. If you go out and spend 100 on you and your wife's meals and don't tip, the server is losing money for having waited on you. The tip out percent is commonly 3 at lower end restaurants, but I've heard of it ranging between 5-10 on the high end for others. America's tipping system is super fucked up. One good reason is that the federal government assumes a server makes a certain percentage of their sales as tips and will tax them on that percentage. It may be a lot different now that more tips go on credit cards, but when I was serving and tending bar, the taxable income was a percentage of my sales. Another good reason in my book is that at a high-end restaurant the server has fewer customers per hour. If you pick a set amount per meal, the local diner server would make much more than the fancy restaurant server, even though the latter is spending more time taking care of you.